Hi, I'm David Krayden, and welcome back to another episode of Ottawa Exposed. Maybe they're beginning to realize that Justin Trudeau is responsible for all this trouble. Yeah, trouble. Who's got trouble? Well, Justin Trudeau has trouble, and the Liberals have trouble. And it all goes back to this problem with China interfering in our Canadian elections. And they've also done it in Vancouver, apparently. But we're looking at the 2019 and 2021 federal elections that China was directly involved with. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service whistleblower has told us that there was Chinese interference by financial means and by sabotage and by coercion. And this has been going on now for quite a few years. We know it's not just in elections either. It's at the universities. And it's at the Confucius Institute. There are lots of issues here. So what's happening this week? The Conservative Party of Canada was going to have an Opposition Day motion on Tuesday that would have compelled Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, to testify before the House Procedure and Affairs Committee. Now, this is the committee that is investigating the Chinese interference, and it's been doing that for quite a few months now, largely under the leadership of the opposition member in that committee, who is Michael Cooper, the member of Parliament for St. Albert, Edmonton. And he's done a very good job of keeping this issue on the front burner and on insisting that Katie Telford testify. And he was going to introduce a motion on Tuesday to that effect. So I just want to listen to the Conservative Party Canada leader / official opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, on this issue of Katie Telford testifying, as well as a clip from MP Michael Cooper on this issue, and they've both been pushing hard on it. So let's give a listen to that.
Leader of the opposition.
See leaked intelligence reports that the Liberal Party received help in multiple elections from the communist government in Beijing, which wanted to keep the Prime Minister in place. We know that his top campaign officials like Katie Telford would have been aware of this help, and we need to know exactly what she knew and what the Prime Minister knew. Only she can answer these questions, but only the leader of the NDP will decide. He is the deciding vote. So the question for him is, will he help his boss, the Prime Minister, cover up, or will he vote for the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff to testify? Which is it?
While this motion is a test for this government, it is also a test for the NDP, because on 3 occasions, the NDP at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee blocked Katie Telford from appearing before the committee.
Shame.
And so the NDP has a choice. They can continue to do the bidding for this corrupt Liberal government, propping up this corrupt Prime Minister, or they can work with us to protect the sanctity of the ballot box and the integrity of our elections by working to get the answers that Canadians deserve about Beijing's election interference in not one, but 2 federal elections. We'll soon find out what choice they make.
Well, it turns out the choice they made was to support the Conservatives' Opposition Day motion. Surprised a lot of people, because that would mean that the opposition would win the vote, the government would lose the vote because they're in a minority position. Now, Jagmeet Singh, of course, has been twisting himself into a pretzel over this whole issue because he's in this unholy alliance with the Liberal government. He is propping up this Liberal government every opportunity. And of course, he throws softball questions towards Justin Trudeau every day in question period. And he'll run home at night, get on his social media and say some critical things about the Liberal government and Justin Trudeau. And he's trying to be 2 people at the same time. Must be extremely difficult. But Jagmeet Singh decided that what he was going to do here was to support this Conservative Opposition Day motion and leading to a defeat of the government in the House. But it was not necessarily a confidence motion, as Justin Trudeau pointed out Tuesday as well. So we'll hear from Jagmeet Singh first, and then Justin Trudeau's reaction to finding out that his alliance partner was going to support the opposition motion.
But foreign interference directly concerns people and makes them feel like, what's the point of voting? And we want to make sure that we address that apathy. So we take it very seriously, and that's why we maintain our position that there needs to be a public inquiry. There needs to be an independent process that's public and transparent so Canadians have confidence in our electoral process. Because what we have in the alternative is Conservatives that are very interested in playing games, but not interested in actually finding solutions to the problems that we're up against. And the Liberals continue to throw up roadblocks, which does not help restore confidence in our electoral system. So today, if the Liberal government, if Justin Trudeau doesn't stop the obstruction that's going on in committee, if Justin Trudeau doesn't allow his chief of staff to testify, we will force him to do so by voting with the Opposition Day motion. We're going to make it very clear that we believe in doing everything possible to make sure Canadians have their questions answered so we can restore confidence in our electoral system.
Be a confidence motion?
No, it's not going to be a confidence motion. Obviously, it goes to how important the issue of foreign interference is, and I'm actually, pleased to contrast the approach that we've taken, which is with terms of reference for the rapporteur that's going to be coming out later today. People will see that there is an expert process that will dig into this in a non-partisan way, and people can contrast this with the kind of political circus that Mr. Poilievre is trying to generate.
Did you see how the Prime Minister has aged in that video? I've never seen him look so concerned about anything like this before. And he's usually so insouciant, so uncaring about real politics. Like, he's above the fray. He doesn't really care about these things. He's just there to tell you what to do. And he's not expecting any pushback that's of any concern to him. But he looks genuinely concerned here, because this is an issue that could potentially bring down the government. Now, Trudeau's been through scandals in the past. He's been through the SNC-Lavalin scandal, and he just threw a couple of ministers under the bus over that one. He went through the personal scandal of blackface, where we learned that he had been doing blackface performing for most of his adult life. And somehow he walked through that one. He's always been politically Teflon. And he's been able to walk through crises one after another without any sort of attendant political collapse. But the China scandal is something that really goes to the heart of democracy and the heart of the Liberal government. And was it allowing China to interfere? Because if China was benefiting, or in the Liberal Party was benefiting from the Chinese interference. Clearly, there's an issue here. And we just learned last night that Han Dong, the Liberal member of Parliament for Don Valley North, Toronto area, is resigning from the Liberal caucus and sitting as an independent. Now, he has denied any wrongdoing, or that he has received any money from China, any support from China in his election campaign. But why is he resigning? Does that look good? The optics look awful. Now, some people are saying already this takes pressure off Justin Trudeau. I disagree. This puts more pressure on Justin Trudeau when he's losing MPs who have been accused of benefiting from Chinese influence. We definitely need a public inquiry. And thank God Jagmeet Singh has finally come on board with this. And he's also demanding Katie Telford testify. So after Jagmeet Singh declared he'd be voting with the opposition, and Justin Trudeau says, hey, you can vote with the opposition, but this is not a non-confidence motion, Justin Trudeau, surprise, surprise, decides that Katie Telford can testify. So here we have it here. Yes. And this is Justin Trudeau's statement. He says, while there are serious constraints in what can be said in public, about sensitive intelligence matters. In an effort to make Parliament work, Ms. Telford has agreed to appear at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee as part of their study. So there you have it. Justin Trudeau says, okay, she can go. So that's where this scandal sits right now, as of Thursday afternoon, March 23rd. And we're waiting to see when Katie Telford is going to testify. And I can tell you that's going to be well attended. And people are going to be there to listen. Because this scandal shows no signs of lessening for the Prime Minister or this Liberal government. Justin Trudeau is in serious trouble here. And it's not, he's not going to wish this one away. He's not going to smugly smile his way through this one, because these are serious allegations. And this could affect other MPs as well. So we're waiting to find out what happens there. I want to move to my other issue of the week, and I had a fantastic conversation with author, journalist, philosopher, Naomi Wolf. You might know Naomi Wolf as sort of an archetypical feminist icon, and she certainly was. She's the author of The Beauty Myth, which was a hugely successful best-selling book about feminism, and she was described as sort of the third wave of feminism. Certainly would have been described as a liberal, supported the Democratic Party, very much supported Bill Clinton and Al Gore. She was the one that tried to change Al Gore into this alpha male. Remember that one? Yeah. And I would never have thought I'd be sitting down and talking with Naomi Wolf about politics. I thought we disagreed on too many things, but turns out the COVID-19 pandemic and the authoritarian reaction of the state everywhere around the world, but especially in Canada and the United States, has really redefined liberal conservative. And it's about whether or not you support freedom. And I said that to Dr. Wolf in our interview, and she agreed heartily that it's not about whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a liberal, conservative. It's whether you believe in freedom. You believe in free speech anymore, that we're allowed to disagree with the official narrative, that disagreeing with that official narrative isn't necessarily misinformation or disinformation. And I was so happy that there's people left like Naomi Wolf, who are being exiled by their Democratic liberal friends, former friends, for speaking the truth. But she's a courageous woman. I want to show you a clip from the interview here.
But I mean, I'm fully persuaded that these people have the same talking points because it's a playbook. And I think it's a playbook from kind of China via the World Economic Forum. I mean, I think that there's a reason they all sound so similar. I mean, you see the same turns of phrase, in countries around the world that are aligned with these kind of CCP/WEF goals. It's disgusting. But look, I totally agree with you. I've been allowed back onto Twitter. And on Twitter, what really strikes me is that critics on the left, commentators, journalists will say, oh, that person who's a conservative is a racist, sexist, transphobe. But they've stopped rebutting anything with facts. And it's just since I was last on Twitter, even they've stopped feeling the obligation to present a fact. They just present outrage, and the outrage is trite and reductionist. And that makes me really sad. I mean, it makes me so sad. I know what you're talking about. It must be, if anything, worse in Canada, but it's bad enough in the United States. I mean, I wrote my most recent essay about this, like going back to Brooklyn, going back to New York City, and no one's talking about it, like everything we've been through the last 3 years, lockdowns, mandates, forced mRNA injections, young adults dropping dead. No one in the literary circles of Manhattan and Brooklyn is addressing this biggest story of our time. That the dissidents on the outside, people like you and I, are addressing. And so there's this surreal quality. I went into a bookstore and none of the writers on race have talked about how African-American families are poorer than ever as a result of the lockdowns or the learning deficits that lower income children have sustained, especially in communities of color. Feminists are not writing about how a decade of women's advancement in the workplace has been rolled back because they had to go home to take care of the kids because the kids were stranded at home. No one, in the worlds of speaking up for like Robert Reich on the mass transfer of wealth, crickets, Michael Moore, who's always spoken up for working class people on how they were forced to not work, nothing. So there's this I could go on and on, the novelists haven't touched it, and it's gold for once in a lifetime, once in a century kind of material for novelists. No one's touching, no one who wants to stay inside the establishment, go to the parties, keep the perks, not be ostracized like I am, or you may have been, I don't know. It seems like you're okay. No establishment figure is touching this third rail of the most important story of our time. So it creates, and if they do, it's like this kind of mess of cliche and redirection, and always it ends up with, well, but Trump is really bad. Like whatever was done to the world, is better than Trump. So it's a very intellectually shameful time right now.
Fascinating interview, and I really enjoyed talking to Dr. Wolf. It was fascinating because you never know how events in the world are going to transform people and are going to affect their political journey. And certainly she's had quite a transformation politically over the last, especially the last 2 or 3 years, but even longer than that, as she has insisted that liberals and Democrats stay truthful and stay consistent with freedom of speech and human rights. And of course, they haven't done that. And we spoke about the January 6th Capitol riot and how the newly released video that was first given to Fox News' Tucker Carlson, how that has completely changed the perspective of this event being some kind of crazy insurrection. And of course, it wasn't. It was a harmful experience. It was a bad experience. And there were people there who were definitely violent, but it was not an insurrection. And it was nothing like 9/11 or Pearl Harbor. And as a matter of fact, this video footage shows the police escorting some of these people in peacefully as they enter the Capitol building. So it was not mayhem from the start. And Donald Trump, of course, did not incite the crowd to violence. He said to go peacefully. And that narrative and that very quotation was stricken from the record very shortly after the mainstream media began reporting on this issue. So I encourage you to go to Human Events, www.humanevents.com, to read the article based on this interview. And you can see the whole interview if you're interested. Naomi Wolf is a fascinating individual because she's done all kinds of research into the effects of the COVID-19 vaccine. So it's fascinating stuff. I would encourage you to read the interview, a story, and watch the whole interview because there's so much happening today. Now I want to close in a minute here with a very funny exchange between opposition leader Pierre Poilievre and the Prime Minister. And question period is rarely a funny occasion, but I think Mr. Poilievre injects some definite humor into the situation. I want you to watch.
The difference is, like housing, we actually got it built. And what I'm proposing is not to dream about housing around transit, but to actually require every single federally funded transit station be pre-approved for high-density housing so our young people and our seniors can live right next to the bus and train. He doesn't like that idea. Well, how about this one? He's got 37,000 many of them largely empty buildings, big, ugly buildings. Why doesn't he sell off 15% of them so we can convert those into affordable housing for our young people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, part of a question period and answer period needs to be taking yes for an answer. And I said yes. Not only do we like the idea of density around public transit spaces, we've been doing it for years. We've been putting it in our agreements with municipalities as we invest historic amounts in public transit. Now, the government, the former Conservative government refused to invest in any infrastructure larger than a doorknob or an economic action plan sign. We're continuing to invest in significant public transit, including with a permanent public transit fund, something that the Conservatives have again campaigned against. We will continue to be there to invest in Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Their very first infrastructure project was to install a doorknob in the Prime Minister's office when they took office, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, speaking of housing. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, sometimes I even crack myself up here.
Well, does that look like a man preparing to become Prime Minister? I think so. That's a good exchange. But we're nearing the end here. I want you to keep watching Krayden's Right in Ottawa Exposed. And if you enjoy this station, if you enjoy what I'm doing here, I'm doing this independently right now. But please like, share, comment, ring the bell. Become a part of Krayden's Right. Become a subscriber. I want you part of this team because I want to continue to do these broadcasts every week to let you know what's going on in Ottawa. We're here to expose what's going on the underbelly and the dark recesses of power. And that's what this show is all about. And as things are going to continue to come out about China and about that interference in our elections, and you want to know about it. So please, thanks for joining us today, and we'll come back next week, please, and we will continue to let you know what there is to expose here in Ottawa, and there's always plenty. So for David Krayden, for Krayden's Right, I'm saying goodbye for now.